Welcome back, class, to League of Legends-ology NLC edition. Week 2 is in the books, no more seeding stage, now we move straight into the playoffs. Let's check in with our teams and see what grades they got last week. At the top of Group A, to no real surprise, Los Ratones, they haven't dropped a game yet, 4-0. Despite winning both their games, they did look kind of mortal. Not the cleanest week from them. Having said that, when they did get any opportunities, they absolutely ran with it. Sign of an elite team. Some sloppiness will cost their grade a little bit, but they're still getting an A-. Second in the group was Nord, 3-1. They handedly took down Bulldog in week 2, despite feeding the enemy Jinx loads of kills early, which is not a good idea. And then versus Lightside, they were especially dominant. Bot lane, 13-0-8. Woof! Their grades moving up, also at an A- for week 2. Last 3 teams of Group A, we had to go to tiebreakers, and coming out on top was Bulldog. After an absolutely shocking week 1, I'm glad to see this student take things a little more seriously in week 2. They're 2 very tough assignments, having to play versus Los Ratones and Nord, but then when it came to the tiebreakers, they were nothing short of quality. B-. Well done. Fourth place after tiebreakers was Verdant, ironically the team that got the closest to bringing down Los Ratones. Sadly, it wasn't quite enough, and they also played their worst game of the split, getting dismantled by Lightside. The revenge versus Lightside in the tiebreakers, but was stopped by Bulldog. Some very high highs and some pretty low lows. C. Rounding off the group in A, Lightside. They picked up their first win of the split versus Verdant, but they just couldn't build from it. The tiebreakers were a total categoric flop. If it weren't for that Verdant game, they would be getting an F. D-. Moving on to Group B, another 4-0 undefeated team, Rich Gang. They played versus DMG and Chaos. Looked very strong. Unfortunately for their grade, DMG and Chaos don't really look that good, so it doesn't mean a huge amount if you beat them, but still can't take away from what they did. A-. Raysack, second place in Group B, had a very chill game versus DMG. Perks was on a mage in top lane, he was pretty good at that. It's almost like he could be a mid laner or something. And versus Venom Crest, it was an interesting strategy to give Yankos Skarner. There are a few good team fights from Venom Crest, but Ruddy were just a step above all their opponents this week. Finally, we get to see their caliber. A-. Venom Crest in third place. They dismantled Chaos, but as I said, that doesn't really mean a huge amount. And versus Ruddy, even though they lost, they didn't go down without a fight. They looked pretty good actually in week 2. B. In the penultimate spot of Group B, we have DMG. They had an exceptionally hard schedule versus Rich Gang and the Ruddy Sack. No, they're hard games, they just did not look good. I'm going to give them a D, and that's only because they played versus hard teams. If they look like that versus any other team, it's a straight F. And in last place in Group B, the only team so far in the NLC who hasn't picked up a win, it's Chaos. Feel a little bit bad to do this to them, but it's not looked good, honestly. They're really going to have to turn something around for the playoffs. They get an F. Playoffs are just around the corner. Wednesday, 6 PM CET on the NLC channels. Be there.